So I would like to start with two elements that I found can be a good frame when we talk about linguistic and cultural diversity in schools. And first, it's a quote from UNESCO that said that UNESCO supports language as an essential component of intercultural education in order to encourage understanding between different population groups and to ensure respect for fundamental rights. Also, just to remind ourselves that in the school system, the risk of not valorizing students' linguistic repertoire include linguistic insecurity, feeling of discrimination, degrees of self-esteem, difficulties in transferring cognitive and language skills from one language to another. And specifically in school settings, we really need to recognize the variety of languages spoken in the society and the linguistic repertoire of bilingual and trilingual students. So, because I'm going to talk about French language schools, I wanted to give you a few elements about French language schools in Ontario. And Studies Canada, the last census, they said that in 2016, 37.5% of children under 15 years of age residing in Canada had at least one foreign-born parent, representing nearly 2.2 million children. And their prognostic is that by 2036, children with migration backgrounds could make up between 39% and 49% of Canada's total child population. So linguistic and cultural diversity is today in our classroom, but this is the future of tomorrow also. This is why it's more and more important to be able to valorize all this repertoire. Because Canada is officially a bilingual country, there are various legislation and policies, federal and provincial policies, that give a frame to the different school models. So you first have the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom with the section 23 that allows right holders to receive schooling in English or in French if that language is not the official language of the province. So in Ontario, because English is the official language, if you are older rights, your kids can have access to a French language school. Also, the Bill 104 is very important in Ontario, and it was effective in January 1st, 1998, and it gave autonomy to the French language school system. And before, they were under the direction of the English division. Also, a policy that is major in French language school, this is the Politique d'aménagement linguistique in 2004, and it's under review since 2016, but because of the changement of government, it's kind of frozen right now, but we are hoping that it will come back. And it's the definition of the mission of French language schools in Ontario. It's about the protection of the French language and culture and a cultivation of a Franco-Ontarian identity. Also, the policy 148 in 2009, it was a policy that allowed new admission policies favoring allophone immigrants in French language schools. In 2009 also, a new definition of the Francophonie was provided to have a Francophonie more open to diversity. And what we can see from the last, I would say, 8 years, there is in the curriculum and pedagogical documents more and more opening to linguistic and cultural diversity in the French language schools. I would like to add, if during my presentation you have any question, just ask right now. Like this we can be more interactive, so please don't hesitate. So far, so good? Okay. So the French language school in Ontario, it's 450 schools and it's 12 school boards all over Ontario. And over the past 15 years, the ethno-linguistic diversification of students in French language school has significantly increased. And Bias points out that French language schools in Ontario play a major role in the preservation and transmission of the French language and Franco-Ontarian culture, which historically were created to combat the gradual assimilation of Francophones into the dominant English culture and language in the province, which is important, this heritage, when we are going to talk about linguistic diversity. So in Ontario, the French language school system has been built on a dynamic of conflict with regard to the English language and focused on the preservation and transmission of a singular Francophone identity. Although several policies and programs have since revisited this position more openly, the concept of Ontario's French language school are still very much influenced by this historical legacy. And both teacher and principal often on the defensive against the dominance of English feel the weight of being the sole cultural and linguistic intermediary of French at the expense of implementing teaching practices that promote the full potential of bilingual students. So what does it mean in practice? In practice, that means that within a minority context, how can educator can balance the valorization of French language and culture, the dominance of English, the linguistic and cultural diversity of both the students and our wider society, to be able to negotiate a more inclusive Franco-Ontarian identity and be able to vivre ensemble, living together. The aim of this perspective is to be able to contribute to the vitality of languages and cultures in Ontario, to leverage linguistic and cultural diversity, and for students to become citizens of the world. So I wanted to present you two pilot research projects that use linguistic and cultural diversity as a leverage in class. And it's an Awakening to Language program, also known as Language Awareness Program. And I give you here a definition that will be revisited for the Canadian context later on. And this Awakening to Language is used to describe approaches, pedagogical approaches, in which some of the learning activities are concerned with languages which the school generally does not intend to teach. The approach concerns the language of education and any other language which is the process of being learned, but it's not limited to these learned languages and integrates all sorts of other linguistic varieties from their homes, from the environment, and from all over the world without exclusion of any kind. So this definition is provided by a framework, a European framework for cultural languages, the FREPA, and you have the link on this slide. If you want to consider this framework, it gives you example on how you can implement trilingual activities in the classroom and give you some ways to develop various skills for students. So in Canada, and given the socio-linguistic issues in Ontario and their implication for the French language school system, we implemented a project that is anchored in the Awakening to Language program, and that it's called Elodil. Elodil was initiated in Montreal by Françoise Armand. It was also implemented by Diane Dagenet in Vancouver. And since I arrived in Toronto, I'm trying to implement this project in Ontario. This is a pedagogical approach, and we support what we call linguistic collaboration in the classrooms, and we promote the coexistence of the language of instruction, students' home languages, and languages of the world. So within this Hello Deal project, I've developed two pilot projects. So a trilingual drama-based pedagogical project, so Théâtre Pluralité Hello Deal, and a trilingual art-based project, Le Plurilingual Kamishibai. So we are going to look at these two different projects and see some results of the implementation. And please feel free to have questions and to ask me this question while I'm talking.
And otherwise we have a session afterwards of the questions.
But I'm sure we'll have more questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, we feel that we have a question right now and then have. So it's just, I think.
Drama and arts, why is there separation? Because I think drama could be part of art.
They both are art-based projects. But there are two different projects. One is the Kamishibai and the other one is the theater class. So because there are two different projects, it's just to separate them, and because we can see that there is some common elements at the end, and it's not about specifically one way to do it. We have different way to use linguistic and cultural diversity in the classroom, and it has to go with the teacher. So we can start by the trilingual drama-based pedagogical project, Théâtre Pluralité Hello Deal. It was first developed in Montreal, and I adapted the project and give a few workshops on this project in Ontario. And I wanted to start by a quote from a teaching consultant that was part of the project, and that was kind of explaining the context in which we implemented this program. Students who attend our schools come from a variety of backgrounds. These students are plurilingual. Arabic, Somali, and English are the mother tongues of most of the newcomers who participated in this project. Most of these students learned their first words of French once they set foot in the publicly funded French language school system. For us, as educators, the stakes are tripled. Developing the pleasure of speaking French while embracing the way of life of their adoptive country without sacrificing their native culture and languages, as well as taking into account the well-being of each child. So this program, and I bring with me the pedagogical guide that we wrote in Montreal and that we are using right now in Ontarian French School. So we have kind of a frame of activities where we have an opening rituals, and we have some playful exercises, and we play some stories. And it's moment of sharing personal stories before doing more academic activities in the classroom. So as you can see in the picture, we use music instruments, we use fabric and the body and voices and languages. So all students in the classroom are encouraged to participate with the language of their choice. And when it's needed, when we feel that we need to all be able to understand, like when we share a full story, some peers can translate the story to be able to develop a common comprehension in French of the story that have been shared. Yes?
What does the chart on the left say?
So this is the structure of each session. So first we have 6 elements around the thematic. So a thematic can be, for example, a dream, my first day at school, an important character for me. So around this thematic, we kind of cut the session in 6 different stages. So the first, it's an opening. Because we want to make the difference between a regular session when we learn mathematics, history, or French, and we want to make it different to be able for the student to, how can I say, to have the transition to more academic learning. So we have an opening session, and then we play together. What we find in research is that students, mostly from an immigrant background that arrive in Canada, can have lost this playful element in their life because they need fast to feel that they can be included in school, work in school, maybe some of them when they become older to have a job, to support the family, and they are losing this kind of playful atmosphere. So we start to play together to be able to have a better class atmosphere, to feel united. And then we develop different theater strategy. We learn how to use music instrument to use the fabric to represent our emotions. One of the part of this, the 35 minutes part, it's about telling stories. So around the thematics, for example, if we say my first day of school, the students are in group of 4 or 5 students, and they are telling their story about the first day at school. And after they are trying to play this story, to making like a theater play, scene. I'm not sure about the word in English. Scene? Okay, so to make it as a scene. Yeah, so each groups plays their scene, and after we discuss the scene and we talk about our emotion around that, and we have a ritual to close the session and to make sure that what was shared in this theater session is confidential, and what we said stay in the classroom to help students feel that they are not judged and they can share private stories. So this is kind of the frame of the activities. Yes.
I was wondering, like, before you started this activity, do you really need to train the students a little bit about, like, creating that responsible classroom?
Yes, we call them the golden rules. So it's and these golden rules are: it has to be confidential because we need to trust each other to really tell meaningful stories. We ask about respecting themselves and others also, and it's and to use the languages of their choice. So these are the golden rules that we explicitly present to the students. And usually we don't start by full session like that because they are kind of heavy to start. So we start usually by playing together during the first 2 or 3 weeks. And after we will add some new elements to go to the part where we share more meaningful stories. Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned this, I don't think you did. There are 2 credit projects. What about the admissions process? Like, how are the students chosen? How do they come in?
So because they are research project, we collaborate with a teacher that wants to be part of this research. So we train, in Montreal we worked with 5 different teachers, so we trained them. We had different workshops and we were going in the classroom with them to support them to implement these practices. In Ontario it was quite different because I don't have to start, I didn't have any research money. So I was invited by the Ministry of Education to give a few workshops all around Ontario about linguistic and cultural diversity. So I gave around 13 workshops, full-day workshops to teachers, and some of this workshop was about the pre-lingual drama-based performance here. So some of the teachers who attended the workshop wanted to implement the drama-based activity, and by themselves they did it. They took the pedagogical books, they wrote me, and they say, I want to be part of that. So it was their initiatives, and they were supported by their pedagogical advisors. And we were writing to each other when they needed some help, but it was from their side. So I worked with 3 teachers in Ontario. They wanted to go further, but last year there were a lot of budget cuts, and the pedagogical counselor was in charge of that part lost his job. So right now we are trying to find a new way to reconnect with school boards and schools.
What's the age of those students? What grades would they be in?
Okay, so the work we did in Montreal, we worked with students that were in welcome classroom, and they were between 12 and 16. In Ontario, they implemented the project in elementary school, so I will say 6th grade, and secondary school in a welcome class also. So the age can vary between, I would say, 10 to 16. Okay. Thank you for your question. It's kind of more interactive, I found. So this is a pilot project that's the result I will present. This project is part of a collaborative inquiry and aims to widen implementation in the French language school system of Eastern Ontario. The result that I will present come from qualitative data, and that was collected from January to June 2018. And it consisted out of interview with teacher, so 3 teachers, students, we worked with 30 students, and classroom observation that we recorded. And in the 3 participating class welcome classes, so class d'accueil, and students were between 10 to 16, so I didn't lie to you. So the 3 teacher collaborators attended a full day workshop presenting the foundation and benefits of prelingual practices and the result of the drama-based prelingual project implemented in Montreal. And with the support of their teaching consultants, they adapted the Montreal project to their context, and they implemented this prelingual drama-based activity weekly over the course of 5 months period. 2 of the collaborating teachers partnered together, and they co-planned and co-taught their prelingual drama-based session. They also included their teaching assistant in the process, and also they decided to include students from the elementary level as an exploratory attempt to foster a vivre ensemble, so a living together, among newly arrived students across grade levels. And a joint session was organized where both elementary school and high school students participated together in some of the drama exercises. So some results. So about the well-being of the students, we could see that it developed a positive class atmosphere, it allowed to know each other better, gives the students a sense of security. The teacher could see a more inclusive behavior and strong relationship among students and their teacher. So more specifically, one of the teachers shared that during the final interview, how the project gave her an opportunity to better comprehend students' experience during their journey to Canada. This atmosphere led to the creation of a strong bonds among all participants, students and teachers alike. These new relationships continue to have a positive impact once learners return to a more traditional class setting. They focus more, and their willingness to learn academic content increases. And in addition, teacher participants expressed how this new atmosphere offered an environment where students wanted to take risk in expressing themselves and their ideas. And this teacher said that students gain confidence and take risks without the fear of being judged by others. This new class atmosphere is fundamental in this context when newcomer students integrate within a class at various times in the school year. The arrival of a new learner in a group that has already been formed can be difficult, but with inclusion practices derived from this drama-based trilingual project, it helps to welcome everyone. One of the teacher participants explained that before the implementation, the class atmosphere was already good and conducive, but because newcomers continually arrived in class, the drama session allowed for a better inclusion of these new students. Also, it's a way for students and teachers to develop empathy. Some activities during the project brought students to talk about their life trajectories by sharing personal events. The videos recorded during the implementation show that students were explicitly supportive of each other's story with their word and actions. So we can see in the video some knowing glances, some comprehensive smiles and looks, and a lot of demonstration of affections. Outside the sessions, one of the teachers noticed that similar attitudes were developed in class. Students were helping each other more. She also noticed that the amount of conflict and pent-up frustration in and outside the classroom decreased since trust and respect had been established, and a mutual understanding arose from sharing similar experiences or events in a safe and secure environment. Also, and as I already said before, the play-based component was an important factor that contributed to reinforce the well-being of the students and their teachers. The research has shown that the possible difficult experiences lived by the students during their journey to a new country may impede the ability of these children to play and could limit their creativity. By opening a space where students can safely rediscover the act of playing together, as well as use their imagination, the project supports the students' well-being and inclusion in a new environment. In a final interview, one of the teacher participants said that the project allows a certain complicity between myself and my students through the act of simply playing and having fun together. Some of them, the more timid ones, let themselves be caught up by the playful atmosphere and explore new ways to express themselves with song and dance, for example. Creativity materializes when it's inherited by the linguistic diversity. The use of students' languages as well as the language of the world become a tool to support students' emotional expression. The 3 teacher participants attested that leveraging their students' first languages represented one of the key components to make them engage more with the French language. In fact, their languages were used as a starting point to share stories and enables them to better express their feelings. Because of the meaningfulness of the messages shared, students engage in translating their ideas into the language of instruction through translanguaging practices, and numerous times students use languages to make their peers laugh using wordplay or different sounds. One teacher also explained that because the drama-based plurilingual project is not assessed, students felt free to express themselves in the language of their choice and had more confidence in speaking without feeling judged. 2 teacher participants added that their students built confidence and they took pleasure in speaking French. Moreover, it seems that French became a language that united them and allowed them to understand each other better in their new environment. Theaters allows the participant to wave connection among and across communication strategy that were taught, such as articulation, speaking loudly, language flow, posture, hook, eye contact, and so on. Connection were also made with listening strategies.
Question.
Yes.
For this part of the confidence and this aptitude, how did you measure? I mean, what was the basis?
It was from the interview that we had with the teacher, and the interview was a discussion, and we wanted that teacher just talk about their experiences, and it came from them.
And did you have a chance to see if this thing lasted longer? You know, like, because you said they seem to appreciate it more afterwards. I wonder if this effect stayed for a while, or?
So the teacher said that for the class atmosphere, it was positive even outside the theater session. We did not specifically ask for the confidence in the language of instruction, but what we have seen in Montreal, because we measure that in Montreal, because we use quantitative data in Montreal, this is something that we have seen.
Okay.
Because we worked during 5 years with teachers, so we were able in a long term to see it, but I was not able yet to study that
of
here
course.
in Ontario.
Because
We did
it's
in Montreal, but not yet in Ontario. So this is why I couldn't add that.
Of course, yeah.
But hopefully it lasts.
Yes.
So I was wondering, so did you interview the teachers twice, like before validating the project and afterwards, or just afterwards?
Just afterwards, because I didn't know that they wanted to implement the project. It's just one day I received a message saying, well, we are starting that, I'm not sure about how I can use the fabric, can you help me? So it was a very good news, because it was just coming from a workshop. I gave a workshop for 86 teachers, so you never know what's happening. And so I was very surprised and happy. So it was just after we had this interview. Yes.
So you said you gave the workshop and then the teachers decided on their own to sort of take up these practices in their classroom.
Exactly.
Did they change them substantially from how you envisioned them, or were they sort of faithful to what you presented in that workshop?
They changed it because, for example, in Montreal, we were working with psychologists, and our team didn't want to use costumes, didn't want to use hats, because they didn't see it as a performance. They just saw it as more way to express, and costume were kind for them putting a barrier. So, but the teacher decided to use hats and costume and balloon and everything they can have on hands. And for me, it's okay. It's not about roasting specific project. It's to allow teachers to find a project, and I adapt this project within his or her context. So, and what was important for me is that they let the students use the languages of their choice. This was my main concern, that not focusing only on developing French, but giving freedom to languages in this part of drama prelingual activity. So this is the only point why I was highlighting.
Did you interview the students? Or?
No, because I didn't add the time to all the protocol, to interview students, and it was in Ottawa and in Toronto, so I couldn't. But they recorded some session, and they have a video on YouTube, and the link is in this PowerPoint. And some students are talking, and I had the opportunity to look at the recording and what was happening in the classroom, but I was not interviewing students. Even in Montreal, we didn't interview students because we found it was students from that was in welcoming classes that had a lot of academic challenges, and we felt that having personal interview can put too much pressure on them. So we had questionnaire to have quantitative data that make it more easy. We could collect data without the barrier of language, because we translated in all the languages of the classroom, but we didn't have one-on-one interview. But we were in the classroom playing with the students. So I was in the classroom doing the activities, and somebody was filming, but no one-on-one interview. Sometimes it's difficult when this all ethics. It's not easy, and it's not only about ethics. It's our ethics as human beings, to be able to respect the participants, the students, their stories, and what I will have asked in an interview. Why I will do that? I don't know. It was very difficult, so we didn't.
So there was an increase in the amount of French being used?
Yes.
And how was that measured?
So we didn't do it here. We just use teachers' boards. They were saying that they were using more French. They were feeling less judged and more confident. In Montreal, we had the same process. Teachers were telling us that, and we had a questionnaire. So in this questionnaire, before the intervention, we asked the student how they feel when they were talking French. Did they feel good, not, with a few questions. It was made by a psychologist. And we were asking them what was language they prefer to share stories, personal stories, and the same question after. And after, we saw a significant increase of the willingness of sharing meaningful story in French, and with less worry about not talking well in French. So we can say, of course, there is a time factor because we had this questionnaire in November and we had the second questionnaire in May. But probably the time factor, but hopefully the drama-based activity helped also. we hope. Another question, yes.
Were the teachers, they voluntarily decided, were they plurilingual themselves? Did they have?
So that was this is a very interesting question. In Montreal, out of 5 teachers, 3 were not thinking that they were plurilingual. But after they discover that they know languages, they know just some words, they are not fluent in other languages, but they can use that languages in this playful environment. So they kind of rediscovered their plurilingualism also in these activities. In Ottawa, teachers are bilinguals. 2 of them are bilinguals, and the third one is trilingual because he's speaking Arabic, French, and English.
So the confidence was also not only in the students, but also in the teacher, like
Definitely.
awakening that you.
Yeah. This is something that we often see when we use linguistic and cultural pedagogy in classroom. And when I did my thesis in Montreal, it was very similar when teachers were participating and trying to explore the linguistic repertoire of their students. They were presenting themselves as models, and they were able to talk about their languages. And this is something that they were telling us they never had space to talk about their plurilingualism because the school is normative and they have to teach French. This is their job. But it was for them an opportunity to rediscover themselves and to see that they are also plurilingual. One of the teachers in Montreal was from an Irish background, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't know how to speak Irish, but it's part of my origin, so it's my origin language, my heritage language, and I want to know more about that." So this is meaningful for the students, but also for teachers. Okay. So, as I told you just before, the FREPA gave us a definition of an Awakening to Language program, but what we can see is that in Canada, it's go beyond just other languages and just develop kind of comparison between languages. So it's what I tell, it's about talking about students' languages. So it's recognizing students' linguistic and cultural expertise. It's also building bridges between the school and the world beyond. It's fostering a sense of pride associated with their communicative repertoire, and also it's developing a linguistic and cultural curiosity. And it's also talking to students about languages and linguistic diversity. So it's to engage them in learning and developing academic skill to a high level. And I really like this quote from Jean-François de Pietro. He is a researcher in Switzerland. He's working a lot on Awakening to Languages program. And he explains that the act of the detour, so the detour through other languages. Is detour a word that I can use in English? I don't know. Yeah, we get yeah, so a detour through other languages into linguistic diversity allows students to navigate back and forth between their first languages and other languages. By putting languages into perspective through comparison, students confronted with unknown languages in which automaticity is blocked and thus it's not possible to go immediately to the meaning. Students must observe the materials proposed to them in details and look for clues to build understanding. And this back and forth between the languages of the world and the languages of the class make it possible to show that the situation of multilingualism is a very banal one, that it is a very normality of the human being, and to put the minoritized languages in the same paradigm as major international languages. And this is a quotation from Michel Candelier, who is a major actor in Awakening of Language program in France. So in Ontario, I'm developing the Elodil project, so Elodil Ontario, and the second pilot project that I'm conducting for the second year is a competition about a kamishibai. So to give you an example, because it's not easy to talk about a kamishibai if you've never seen it. This is a kamishibai. So this is a kind of a box that can be made in wood or in any other material that is strong enough. And like a theater, you can open this box and you have on one side some drawings that are made by students, and on the other side you have a story that can be told. So you move the slide in the box and you tell a story. So for the second year, we are organizing in partnership with a French organization, Du Lala, a competition. So it's an international competition where students are invited to build this story, this kamishibai. So it's about 15 to 18 slides that they illustrate, and they create a story, a project classroom with a story. So the first year that we had this competition, 15 teachers and 2 school boards decided to be part of this competition, and that means it was about 318 students. So we have the second edition of this competition, and 36 teachers enlisted, and we have more than 650 students who are making this kamishibai. Also, 80% of the teachers decided to participate, attending workshop on linguistic and cultural diversity that I could have gave the past 4 years. So here I'm presenting you before the result of the implementation, because I know the time is going fast. The winners of last year. So among these 15 kamishibai, we elected 5 winners, and one was elected also to be part of the international competition, because you have different levels for the competition. And this international competition is in 9 countries, and in Canada, Quebec, and Ontario are having this competition. And the data I'm going to present you is from the first edition, because we are still waiting for the new kamishibai that will come around May. I had interview with 2 teaching consultants, and I used the 15 kamishibais as a production from students to be able to analyze as a pilot research the impact of the project. So the kamishibai come from a Japanese word, and it's a Japanese tradition that said paper theater. This project originally has been developed by a French association that is called Du Lala, d'une langue à l'autre. And it allows students to create together stories and to illustrate them, but being able also to tell this story in front of an audience. So here you can see a teacher that is telling, so on your right, that is telling a story, and you can see some students trying to draw or write a pre-language story. In these photographies, you can see another teacher who is trying to build a butai, which is the box in which you put the slide of the story. And we have a few pedagogical documents that we provide the teacher to be able to implement this kind of project. So what are the different stages they should take with the students? We have a video, tutorial video, how you can make this box, this butai, either with board or either with wood. So everything is on the website, and the teacher can access easily this website. Also, we have Camille Alas, a French organization, made a video to explain the process. It's in French. And some interview with French teachers are provided to give example and maybe to inspire the teacher to be part of this adventure. So I'm going here to give you some preliminary results and to interpret the data that I have up to now. So all the languages that were in the Kamishibai were from the students' repertoire. They didn't use any other languages, and they use a lot of translanguaging practices. But what I can see in their production is that French was the dominant language in each Kamishibai. Most of the text was in French, and no titles. None of the titles use prelingual title or even bilingual, and that it was only titles from their project in French. And depending of the story, and possibly because I don't know what kind of instruction were given by the teacher to the students, students were using either words in sentences, in French sentences, or full sentences in other languages. And what I noticed also is that the English language was used in 12 Kanishibais out of 15, which was for me important to see, because as we saw before, English is for teacher in French school in Ontario, accepting other languages, it's easier than accepting English in the class. So it was interesting to see that it was present in most of the Kamishibai. So I wanted to show you here how they used these translanguages practices. They used some words or code switching inside, and they were also giving some translation. And also in most of the Kamishibai, prelingualism is presented as magical or requires boundary crosses. They need a window, they need a door, or to be in a dream to be able to appear. And so what I can see, sorry?
I don't understand what it means. If prelingualism is presented as magical or requires boundaries.
Is that to be able for the prelingualism to be part of the story. For 10 Kamishibai out of 15, something magical needs to appear. Or you need a door. It cannot be in kind of natural context. You need something exceptional. So for example, in this one, the title, it was only a dream. So it's possible, this prelingual, what's happening, it's about a video game, and he's dreaming of being into a video game, and this is where the prelingualism appear, where there is doors, where there is windows, where there is some space where they can escape. It's never in a kind of regular environment. I'm giving some few more examples. In another one, it's because there is a magical car. The car is magic, and because the car is magic, we can have prelingualism. Another prelingual is magical gemstones. Two other one, it's animals that are magical, either a bird, either other birds, the flamingos, I don't know, flamengo? Flamingo. Another one is because it's a prelingual robot, but it's not something in 10 out of 15 Kamishibai, it's not something that is regular. And this is why it strikes me is that for students in a classroom environment to be able to use other languages. They need to find kind of an escape, to find something to make it possible, because the monolingual habitus of the school is so strong.
There's a question from somebody
Yes.
who's attending remotely. Would the idea of magic not have been discussed previously and suggested previously, given that it occurs so frequently?
Yeah, I had the same question. Maybe someone modeled, the teacher modeled it.
I can't know, but it's a good question that I can ask for the new edition.
But
This
it's
is
the
what-
same class or?
No, it's 15 different classes.
So
And
that's-
from two
yeah.
different school
Then
boards.
probably not.
So I guess probably not, but I have no way to be 100% sure. When I give a workshop on the Kamishibai, I never talk about magical elements. This is, I'm sure. But yeah,
So very probably not.
very
right?
probably not.
Yeah. It's very interesting, this point, that they allow this language diversity to be, this plurilingual part to be possible only if it is through magic, like out exceptional. No?
Yeah, I think the comment says it's too convenient. I agree a little bit, because between that age, usually, like, I know my daughter, if you ask her to write a story, she'll write something about magic. I don't know if this,
Yeah.
they could be other
Yeah.
inspirations, that they read.
No, but what
Not
is strange is
necessarily
that
to-
the other language comes only through the magic, It's not strange that they write about magic, that's not surprising. But that only in the magic, there
But
is
they
a space
were-
for another
They were
language.
required to use the language.
They were required
Four
to use at
languages.
least
Yeah.
4
So
languages.
then it's,
But for me, what was, as Enrica was saying, is that we have, for example, a trilingual robot, or we have magic, like it's the story that were created, even though they could use personal stories, was very, to be able to use trilingualism, they really chose 10 out of 15 to have kind of a supernatural element, something that is not existing, to make it possible in school. So this is something that questioned me, and for now it's why I did this preliminary project, to be able to build a questionnaire, and we are going to interview more teachers this year with the 36 participants, if it's working well, because with the strike, I don't want to push. I mean, if it's not working this year, it's going to be the following year, because there is more pressure event right now. But it will be a good way to see what was the process, and to go further, to go deeper with that question. Yes.
So you said that the students were required to use 4 languages.
Yeah.
And the languages came from their repertoires, so presumably the students worked in groups on these?
Yes. It's one Kadishibai by class.
Okay.
So they create one by class. One of the classes they send 4 Kamishibai, but it was not respecting the format that was asked, because you have a set of rules to make it possible. So at least for languages between 10 to 18 slides, we have a format to respect, also to be printed on, because it's a competition, so it's you need some rules. So some were not eligible, but yes, it was mandatory, and we had a questionnaire at the end that was led by the French organization, and that was asking like what kind of languages you use, and was this language speaking in the classroom by your students or not. This is how I could say that it comes from the students' repertoire.
And is the entire competition plurilingual with French as the dominant language?
No, because it was implemented in Italy also, in Greece, in Portugal, French, in Louisiana, in China, and it was dominant language, the language of instruction, that was the media,
Okay.
and after inside we use other languages.
So it's a very multilingual competition.
It's a multilingual
That's really cool.
competition. Multi-plurilingual competition. It
Yeah.
is very cool. It's amazing. Yes.
I'm wondering the difference between those two projects is one that it's about a competition, it's public, and the other one is the confidentiality is the key element, and I wonder if it has an impact on how even the students respond to the task.
It's a very good question, and I think I need more data to see. But what I can see where it merge when there is common results, it's for example in this story, I bring it because this was the winner, an unforgettable story. The students were from a welcoming class, which exactly the same type of class where we implemented the drama-based activities. So they were telling the story about their trajectory to arrive in Canada and how they had to leave their country, to go in refugee camps. And what is very interesting in the story is that at several moments you can see lines that can show that in different time, in different part of the country, other people were living the same situation. So they find a way, like we had in the stories shared during the theater, they find a way to find common experiences that makes the class more strong together, because they felt less alone. Or you went also in a refugee camp, like me. What did you live? What was happening? You couldn't go to school also. So how they evolve with that. So this was something similar with the theater. And after this is the only element I could see right now. But it's a very good question. It can be part of my questionnaire. Thank you. Yes.
Do you know anything about the criteria for selecting winners?
Okay, the criteria, I'm making them.
Oh, okay.
Because this is, I'm using my trip travel funding instead of going to conference to be able to have this kind of project. So what we are looking at the translanguagic practices to see if it's fluent, because sometimes they just translate. It's kind of three monolingual text that they translate or four. So, and it's part of the rules. So how they use the translanguaging, the originality of the drawing, of the story, and we had the selection, the committee. I used the students in Mississauga, who was part of a research project about linguistic and cultural diversity. They were part of the jury, and one of my colleagues that was a postdoc from University of Vienna that was here in Toronto, and she was a specialist in linguistic repertoire, Nadia Thomas, and she was part of the committee also. It was only 15, so that was easy. This year, 36, I think we need a grid that will be more strong.
Do you mean that the translanguaging practices were required or not? Or
we
just
need-
for languages without
We need at
specific-
least 4 languages, and
Yeah.
we wanted the winners where, when we look at the different practice, if it's a text that is only translated, one monolingual story plus a tool, for us it was not a Kamishibai that can win.
Okay.
We
But
wanted,
did they know that?
yeah, it was part of the
Okay.
rules. Yeah, how it can be embedded, and it's in our pedagogical guide also.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be open,
Yeah, sure.
definitely. Yeah.
Did the winning Kamishibai use, is it one of the 10 that used magic to present the
No.
plurilingualism?
No, this one is about the the trajectory of students from a refugee camp.
But with no magic elements,
No,
because there could be magic
but
in that story
yeah,
too.
but it was not for us a criteria to disregard the
Right.
Kabushibay, because we have different category, and for the younger one, for example, it was okay. It's just it's not because there is magic element that we say no, it's not working. It's about the fluency of the translanguaging practice, how they use that. How, for example, in this one is very interesting because they used words that was specifically related to the life of the students, and it was more powerful. So how we felt when we were reading.
Does that, I'm just thinking about, like, does that mean that there's a better way of, like, a better or more, like, more quality translanguaging than other practices, or how does it work?
Supposed to translation, right? They kind of flying as the
Yeah,
translation.
it's because we could see that sometimes they build a story only in French, and after they just translate it in other languages. And if we want to promote prelingualism, we are at another stage right now where it's part of our life, and words can be embedded in text, and this is what we wanted to promote with this project.
And maybe this idea of the crossing barriers, no?
Yeah.
Because if you translate, you stay within the same language, so you don't allow yourself to cross any barrier.
And for us, it was a way to reach teachers and to tell them it is possible. And if in your classroom you see students don't have the word in French, you see, you can use just one or two words in another language, but that doesn't mean that after they will stop developing French. It's just a stepping stone to go further and to still keep expanding our ideas. So it was kind of a tool for us to show them that it's possible. And like having this year 36 teachers, and I didn't add opportunities at the beginning of the year to publicize the competition. So it's really because it worked. And
Was there a way to make sure that one or two students in each group didn't sort of take over the whole thing?
no way at all. No. And maybe when I'm looking at the drawing, is it only students or did the teacher help a lot? We don't have a way to check that, because that will mean that I will be in class with So it's yeah.
But it brings back the question of like between, let's say the CFR, is the spirit of building bridges between cultures, or is it a tool for assessment? And when you took it as a competition, then it becomes more you pressure its top-down approach to, okay, the political is good, is important, and perform it, instead of let's take a process and actually build empathy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's just I'm trying by any doors, any windows, any possible entry possible to show teachers that it's possible. And from the past 4 years, I have been working with school boards, and I gave for the Ministry of Education 13 workshops. So I'm here, but as long as I leave the workshops, they go back in the classrooms, they have a lot of motivation. The first 2 or 3 weeks, they do some prelingual activities. But after, because of the curriculum, because of life of a teacher, it's kind of go away because it's not mandatory. So I'm trying a competition. And if it's not working well, I will find something else. Because at least 36 teachers right now are working on prelingual productions with their students. And for me, this is already a win. But
Yeah, I agree with what you say, because it's always where do we go, at which end, but at the same time it's so difficult to bring them out of this kind of separation that anything goes, in a sense, at least to to break the ice, and then maybe
Yeah.
one could imagine that the competition is not even necessary anymore.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah.
It's just now we need, because the teacher right now didn't have the opportunity that we all have right now, having courses with Enrica that are talking about trilingualism. They didn't have this opportunity before. So of course they had a workshop of 7 hours, and after that, it's we need time to process. It has been for me 15 years that I'm working on trilingualism, so now it's easy for me. What about a teacher, or during 30 years he was teaching, or she was teaching just only French language and thinking that just French immersion is the best way to teach, and it was working. So who I am to arrive and say it's not right? I need to show that there is other possibilities.
Or one way could be like somehow use this multimodality or multisemiotics to enrich the language of production. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have to design the task in a way that whatever semiotics we use, whatever multimodality we use, because we don't have any pattern for assessing them in an objective way, so we can somehow integrate them into a language output. It could be speaking, it could be writing. And if we don't have like that translanguaging pattern still to see that how it works or how it develops, maybe we can look at it at a bi-directional way or multi-directional way, like the effect of exposure to second language and what happens to their first language, or first language to second language, or third language to second or first language. At least that one can be assessed, as you were mentioning, if you are talking about assessments or objective improvements or development.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I'm not a specialist of assessment, but it would be good to partner with somebody who is a specialist in assessment to see how it can work. I feel that right now it is already so difficult to talk about trilingualism that going slowly is the best way, and real confidence with partnering with the Ministry of Education, with teachers, and seeing that as researchers we are not here to judge or to say this is the best practice, but to support them in opting for something a bit different sometimes. But after assessment can be a very good step to take. Thank you.
And the assessment should be emergent, because as you're mentioning, there are different possibilities, different types of complexities.
And mostly these stories, they are writing it, but they are reading it to an audience. So after they go to different classes and they read their stories out loud. So you need a lot of skills to be able to read a story to others when they only have the illustrations. So it can be also a component to assess at what point. Definitely.
So these are kind of identity texts for the students as well, right? Because through the while they're presenting in front of a class, so possibly they're getting some positive feedback from their peers and teachers, which kind of motivate them, and like they're curious about learning the target language maybe.
This one was definitely an identity text. Some of them were less identity texts, more when they were more magical or traveling all over the world. But it's a place where they can find identity text approaches, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. Yes.
Just to talk about making it more attractive to people who are adopting this methodology. It could be one way of saying that these arts are sometimes put as the last priority on the curriculum. So by tying it in with plurilingualism, it can start to get it to climb a little bit, because you can see that there's obviously some benefits to like drama and art, but you also have like a link that makes it more personally relevant to people by making it language
can see that in the new curriculum, the well-being of the students, it's at the front of the new curriculum. They really highlight these elements, so it can be part, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Okay. So we already talked about that, how it's, students can have shared experience and they can illustrate them in the Kamishibai. So this is just some extracts. And I wanted to finish the result of this project with two quotes from conseillers pédagogiques, so pedagogical advisors that were part of the project last year. And one said that it is incredible how much these kamishibais have had an impact on teachers and students. They present their masterpieces with such pride. This project allowed all those who participated to get to know each other better in terms of language and to enhance the value of their mother tongue. Great experience at all levels. And also, what I could see that it's a commitment to trilingualism over a long term. We will probably participate again next year, and I would like your support to make greater use of trilingual tools. So it's really a starting point to go further, to start a conversation with teachers. And I look at the time, it's going very fast, so any question? I like it better like that because sometimes we have a question that are just in our mind and we cannot